lost in the mind formations, the reaction, the mind stream, the words that are coming out of your mouth, the thoughts that are going through your head. You're completely no space. Where's the space? There's no space. Just that. And then you talk to someone and you said, it could be any kind of talking. It could be gossip, it could be fearful, it could be angry, it could be, we must get something done, we can't allow this to happen, or whatever it is. It could be sad, but completely lost in that, and where's no space. Sometimes when people come to me and they talk to me and I can see they're totally lost in the mind interaction, I just wait until they come to an end, and that could take a while. And when they finally stop, then and just wait and look at them. And it sometimes happens that at that moment some space comes back in them, and then they wake up. And then the strange thing is, you can see that no situation is really that heavy when there is space around it. It's only a situation. It's only different forms, limitations of forms appearing in some way. It's only one more situation, expressing some form of limitation, of course. It's the world of form. No more than that. And that no situation truly has that density and heaviness to it unless you give it to it. The world, actually, the world of form isn't that heavy and bad. It's what you add to it makes it dense and heavy and incredibly magnifies what is there as the simplicity of some kind of situation. But through that which you carry inside, which is the need for suffering and for conflict, then magnifies, blows up that situation into something very big. And it's all ultimately constructs, it's all ultimately illusory entities being created. But it can look very big, so big that it might reach the evening news on TV. And then you know it's really heavy. If people knew that in certain places where this unconsciousness is particularly pronounced, there are certain parts in the world where there's enormous heaviness of conflict. They're just very simple situations which could be resolved by sitting together for a few minutes round a table with space around it. They would sit. Could be resolved in a few minutes with just some space around it. Whatever situation is, Middle East, Northern Ireland, all these where human unconsciousness is particularly heavy, dense. But of course it's everywhere. But it's not the outer situation. The outer situation is simple. It's always simple. It's what people, and that is the essence of karma. What flows into it. The situation is used as an excuse. And that's not confined to Northern Ireland or the Middle East. In everybody's life, it's the same. It's simple. It's always so simple. It's always just the now. And then you through that conditioned reaction with its need for conflict. Why is this need for conflict? To strengthen my sense of self. That is the illusion. Why are the Middle East and Northern Ireland? They are in conflict because they are defending and attempting to strengthen their sense of identity, collective sense of identity. In Ireland, they several times a year, one faction has to march through the other other religions' district. They've been doing it for 300-400 years because there was a battle 400 years ago and where they killed more than the others. And so they have to assert themselves by marching through whatever Protestant, Catholic. And they ask, why are they doing this? What is the point? Well, this is it gives them their sense of self. They don't have no other. And the conflict sustains it. So to see that whatever life situation you may be in, it's simple. It is always simple. It does not have the heaviness. The heaviness comes through the projection, which is the need to enhance yourself through problems and conflict. It is the addiction to suffering, which is connected to having no identity beyond the little me. So it uses the world and makes it into a very heavy place. And the limitations that are inherent in the world of form become a very problematic life situation and a very problematic me. And slowly the world turns into hell. And so it's just a little, is there space? Now all that people are, when they are lost in form, mind form, physical form, reaction, conditioned reaction. They're all conscious of all these things, the forms. Now what one could say, I'm just offering you one more pointer. If one doesn't work, the other one might. One could say space consciousness rather than object consciousness. Almost everybody goes through this world totally occupied, totally dominated, totally identified with object consciousness. And every object matters because you have nothing beyond it. Every object, including every mind object, which is every thought, including every emotion that comes with a thought, is object consciousness. You are in it with your sense of self, each one. And space consciousness is absent in most people. It is the one thing that could redeem you they don't know it. It's so simple. It's all that is the essence of this teaching, is to teach space consciousness, not to get lost in form, not to get lost in mind. And what ultimately that is, I cannot explain. I'm doing the best perhaps that anybody can through language. It's a miracle that one can even talk about it. Because of course it eludes language, because language is form. It eludes thought. You cannot fully understand it. You can only get approximations of it through thought. It also would not be helpful to continue to elaborate and differentiate more and more the concepts and vocabulary that I use to describe that consciousness. That would give you the illusion of understanding it if I differentiate it more and more, creating new words to get another int and another int, and it would become a mental construct again. So I'm going only so far as to give you enough pointers, and that's it. The rest is, one could say, a direct transmission. Not that I am doing anything, it just happens. It's a direct transmission of presence or space consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And that is why I pointed out at the beginning of our retreat to be conscious of that dimension here that is beyond the words. So all that the words do, they point to that. But the essence is that dimension. Now, whether you call that space consciousness, whether you call that presence, or you call it stillness, or you call it the unconditioned consciousness, or you call it pure awareness, doesn't matter. They're just little pointers. Or you call it consciousness without thought, or you call it pure intelligence. That's another pointer. The pointer is not it. It's beyond the words. It's beyond the world. Yet it's here. It's beyond form. Yet it's here. How does it come into this world? Who knows? It's here. So to be open to that dimension as we sit here, which perhaps you can't say much about it, and yet it arises as the ability to just sit here in that alert stillness. That sense of spaciousness. And know for yourself at first hand what it is to be conscious without thought. Even if thought happens as occasional movement within that, it's fine. There's space around it. Space. And that is the only absolute. Everything else is relative in your life. Everything in your life matters relatively, whether you succeed in the world, in the eyes of the world, whatever that means, which means the world is telling you that you've made it. Does that matter? Well, it matters relatively. If you need the mad world to tell you that you've made it, okay. Whether you are poor or rich, it matters relatively. Whether you live in a tiny little hut or a huge mansion, it's relative. Yes, it matters relatively. All the outer circumstances of your life, even whether your health is good or not, yes, but not absolutely. There's only one thing that matters absolutely, and that is whether you know yourself. Whether you know yourself beyond form. If you don't know yourself, none of those things that matter relatively can save you. To be important in the eyes of the world can't save you, doesn't give you peace, doesn't give you anything ultimately. To be wealthy doesn't save you. To live in a mansion doesn't save you. Mansions are full of unhappy people. Still looking for themselves. They thought through the mansion they would find themselves, because the self suddenly expanded into this huge mansion. And they didn't find themselves in it. Only one thing matters absolutely, and that is this. Then the rest becomes very much secondary. It changes anyway. You can't rely on anything out here. You can't trust the world, you can't trust any form, because it's going to leave you. Or you leave it dissolves. True trust is something else. Not to trust in anything that is form, but the state of absolute trust is the state of presence, where no form is needed to complete you, and no form can threaten you. So we are learning here what space consciousness is, but we're not really learning it. We are unlearning all those conditioned habits. We are relinquishing, looking through all those conditioned habits that obscure space consciousness, obscure presence, which is already here. It's strange, there are some places where particularly spiritual seekers are drawn, and this is one of them. For thousands of years they've been drawn here, and many of them remain seekers. They're looking for themselves in perhaps some experience, or perhaps a vision, or something to be added, and don't know that the very seeking obscures what's already here. So remember what I said before. Space consciousness, you can bring it into any interaction, and it is your job to do that, because that's how the world changes. The world consists of human interaction. You can bring it into any interaction through being in the state of attentive listening. That is the space. And then the problem may come when you start speaking. Then the tendency is, as the mind stream arises, it has a pull. And to get pulled soon after the mind stream starts, to be completely pulled into it and be completely dragged along by the mind stream as you speak. Words compulsively coming out of your mouth. And it'll be some kind of problem. Or whatever, some kind of criticism, some kind of complaint, something that matters. And you are so identified with comes out that you believe it to be the truth. A thought being the truth, a fragment, relative perspective, one of innumerable possible perspectives on a situation, on a person, and you take it to be the truth. So the mind stream, and this is not a personal problem again, it's the collective human mind. We talked about the pain body not being a personal matter, nor is the whole stream of thinking a personal matter. It's the human mind. There was a philosopher in the first half of the 20th century who made a strange statement. We don't speak, language speaks through us. Perhaps to take it a step deeper, what he meant was, we don't think, thought thinks us. He's actually said, language speaks us. So we could say thought thinks us. It is a movement, an energy movement, an energy formation, collective, human. The momentum of it is enormous. So, the moment you might be in a state of listening, you're listening to another person's space, and then you start to speak. At first it may be fine, there's still space around it. And then it can happen that before you know it, you get drawn into complete identification with that mind stream, and it pulls you along. And then, of course, you completely believe in what you say. There's no perspective anymore. You're lost in the one little perspective. This could even if you don't speak, it can happen. Thoughts going through your head, and you're totally lost in that. In whatever they say, you totally believe in, about yourself perhaps, about somebody else. So you're lost in the mind stream. And it could be a while before it comes to an end, because it will proliferate into another one and another one. And it might need somebody to hit you on the head before you suddenly go, ah! As presence arises, there's the ability in you, even when the mind stream comes in the middle of being dragged along the mind stream, still to know that this is what's happening. And that's all that's needed. To know that you are being dragged along by the mind stream. That it means consciousness is beginning to free itself from being totally trapped in thought. Just the little knowledge that you are being dragged along by a mind stream, a tiny witness in the background. The moment that arises, there is the arising of space. It might be very small at first. But that's all that's needed. So you don't need to fix yourself, change yourself, knowing, oh, I must get rid of my mind. No, know it when it's there. That's all that's needed. If you had to fix yourself, it would take a long time. Just to see the conditioning as it operates. And then it cannot sustain itself for that much longer if the witnessing presence remains. The unconscious mind stream will soon come to an end, because when consciousness comes in, it's hard for an unconscious movement to sustain itself. So instead of trying to rewire yourself through this or through that, and there are many people who promise to fix you, I don't. Instead of that, allow the awareness, the aware presence to be there. And that, of course, is not something you can make happen. It's either there or it isn't there. But the fact that you are here means it's there. Because it's only that made you come here. If you came here by mistake, or because of some illusion that this was about something else, as it happened occasionally, people came when for a little while I called this, when I gave some talks, I had the title Freedom from Time. And once or twice people came by mistake because they thought it was a seminar about time management. That happened twice. One person who came for the seminar on time management walked out and told the organizer, "I'm sorry, this is meaningless to me. I had come for time management, and I'm sorry, it was a big mistake." And the other one who came was a doctor who needed to sort out his time problems. And he sat there in astonishment for 3 hours. And he said, "I've never heard anything like this before. And I had come for time management, but this is so much better." So, presence, this is something you can't make happen, whether the witnessing presence is there or not. I'm speaking to you and saying that because I know that it is arising in you. If you should have come here by mistake, believing it was about something else, or believing that this was here so that you could acquire more spiritual knowledge, or more beliefs, or expecting something else, emotional experiences jumping up and down, who knows? And then you've probably already left